We are now entering the aviation pavilion. The first plane on camera is the Boeing B-17, the Flying Fortress. This particular plane, the Boeing B, is one of the featured ones here at the museum. It has been in a number of films, including The Memphis Belle, but the B-17 was one of the workhorses of World War II. It's alrighty. And just for good measure, out here we have a statue representing Rosie the Riveter, one of the iconic groups of ladies who worked on planes while their men were off in war. This is the iconic Concorde. The plane here at the museum was the last commercial flight, landing in 2003 in Seattle to much fanfare before it was donated to the museum. Oh well, I'll walk through.
Watch your step.
This plane was capable of going at Mach 2, which was unprecedented. But it was limited on where it would fly because it couldn't fly over land. Due to the fact that at supersonic speeds, the airplane would actually stretch at high altitudes. The windows are extremely small. Next up is our Air Force One, the very first jet in the Air Force One designation. It was delivered to Eisenhower in 1959 and used extensively by him and then President Kennedy until Kennedy received a bigger plane. Our Boeing VC-137B is a 707 airplane. The plane that was delivered later on to Kennedy was a little bit longer than this one, but this one was also used by Vice President Johnson, and Premier Khrushchev of the Soviet Union took this on his tour around the US. is the presidential stateroom. The bathroom was outfitted with fixtures put in by Jackie Kennedy to make it feel a little bit more homey and less like an airplane. The stateroom served as the flying Oval Office. The hat is President Lyndon Johnson's.
It's like the Roblox airplanes, literally. No, I would sleep here. You can. This is like a
Outside
house.
conference table.
This is like a house. You cannot sit here. We can't sit. This is actually could be like. If it wasn't like closed up, then it would be
Look.
There's two-seated toilets in here. Oh, it's not. That is so weird. Oh, wait.
Rear galley just like in front. And companion restrooms. Next plane up is the Boeing B-29, the Super Fortress. Longer and larger and more powerful than the B-17, the B-29 also was crucial in our efforts in World War II. Its iconic cockpit was the inspiration for the Star Wars Millennium Falcon. When seen from inside, the window looked identical to the way the Falcon's cockpit did in the movie. Our most modern of the big planes at the museum is the third 787, but it's the first one that ever flew. It's like iconic new jet made out of carbon fiber. It's much more lighter weight, holds less people, but travels much farther than most planes before its time. Doing a little filming for my sister.
Oh.
Oh. Oh. Hidden in this column is a crew rest area. It's a set of stairs that goes up to about 6 bunks. Rear galley. And one of the rear restrooms. Because the plane is made of carbon fiber, the very long wings are extremely flexible and will actually bend in takeoff. Next video is the 747. The city of Everett, dubbed the Queen of the Skies. This was the very first plane, the prototype. Delivered in 1968, it was the primary test flyer for all the 747s to come. It rolled out at Payne Field to a large celebration with all the airline crews at the time. Which is why it has a number of logos from different airlines. Its iconic hump had a lounge upstairs. To reach it, you take the stairway. A Pan Am stewardess uniform. Another highlight of the museum just happens to be back in the corner, and it's the prototype for the 737. This plane itself was used by NASA on some test flights with the astronauts. It's much shorter than the 737s are today, but they were expanded and lengthened over time. for commercial travel. We have many planes out here, but another one I wanted to highlight is the world's first 727. Not only just a prototype, this plane was actually used and flown. The one we have, we recovered from United Airlines. The 727 was the first tri-jet engine. They were loud, but fast. The 727 is made famous because it's also one of the planes known for being hijacked. It had a secret door in the back that is where the hijacker was able to escape. Of course, that was a situation made famous right here in Washington State. D.B. Cooper is represented here by a statue. While this is not the 727 that D.B. Cooper hijacked itself, we have it at the museum because it was the very first one. It's parked adjacent to the first 747. The popularity of the 727 waned a little bit because of its third engine did make the plane very loud. And as the 737 continued to gain in popularity, this plane kind of faded into the background a little bit. I would be remiss in not highlighting the star of this side of the street. The Space Gallery building was built literally for the full-size fuselage trainer from NASA. It is a full-size mock-up of the space shuttle. It never went to space, but while it was down at Johnson Space Center, every astronaut who had ever gone to space trained on board. The cockpit is off limits at the moment, but we can go up into the payload bay. It's full, made of plywood, but they use this to practice evacuation and piloting. That's a picture of our trainer when it was still down in Texas. Also in the space gallery we do have a Soyuz spacecraft from the USSR. But it's definitely still the shuttle that takes up most of the space. Along with the full fuselage trainer, we are getting a new exhibit from Blue Origin. The next few videos are of our personal courage wing. One floor focused on World War II, the upstairs focused on World War I. One of the earliest planes in our collection is the Caproni CA-20 from Italy. Due to its era, the majority of our World War I planes are either triplanes or biplanes. This plane was made famous by the Red Baron. Most of our World War I planes are restored with a number of reproductions because of their age. Another very early plane was the Jenny. Now entering the World War II era gallery. The early German planes, like this Messerschmitt, still were labeled with the flying cross on the end before you started seeing Nazi regalia. One of England's contributions was the Spitfire. Back in the days when China was one of our allies, we had equipment that went to China to help defend against the Japanese forces. This is a Warhawk made by Curtiss. And then we have a plane from Japan with the rising sun on the wings and painted in a camouflage style. It's a Nakashima Ki-43. In 1943, we saw the beginning of aircraft carrier warfare. The planes on the early aircraft carriers tended to be designed to have their wings that would fold up. This example is a General Motors Wildcat. And this one is our Corsair, made by Goodyear. Next up is a Republic Thunderbolt, one of the planes of this style used during the D-Day invasion. Various nose art painted on the planes that you see were done to boost spirits as well as to poke an eye a little bit in the enemy. Often there were planes that had pictures of actresses of the day, or like this one, a symbol from a game of cards. We also have an airplane from Soviet Russia because at that time they were an ally in World War II. This one is a Yakolev Yak 9U. And even in Russia, they too had nose art. In our World War II collection, one of the planes featured was the very popular P-51 Mustang. Nose art included. Next section is our Apollo exhibit. Among many number of smaller artifacts out here in a modified Quonset hut display and a replica of a Gemini capsule. Including a section of a test lunar lander bottom. And this one is a command module. Obviously not one of the originals, but one used in testing. The star of our location, however, is this engine, one of the 5 on the Jupiter 2 rocket. This engine, after it fell off from takeoff, was recovered in the ocean. These are a few of the rocket components that went into that engine. And then the moon buggy. This one was from 1971. Obviously it is not the one left on the moon, but it's one thing that our father worked on at Boeing. And how could you do an exhibit for Apollo and not have a sample of moon rock? Next up is our Great Gallery, our largest collection of planes indoors from various eras all in one gigantic room. Because there are so many, I will only highlight a few of them. But it's always just inspiring to walk in and realize just what this place is. Starting with some of the earliest. This is a plane from the early days of transcontinental flying, but it's marked for early airmail. It's the Boeing Model 40B, although this one is a reproduction. Next up is a Boeing Model 81. It's actually the last surviving Boeing Model 80 left. This one came from a private owner after it was recovered and restored. Incidentally, this is also the first plane that we ever had. Long before I came to work at the museum, this plane was on display at Seattle Center in the infancy days of the Museum of Flight. It's also a United Airlines plane. It was mostly of use in the 20s, and this one was retired in the 30s. It did have wooden seats, cushioned seats, but a wooden interior, I meant. And it's in our exhibit on bush pilots in Alaska. But while it's not as well known as many of the other pieces, being the very first one for our museum and the very last of its kind, it's definitely a showpiece. I'm going to show a handful of our earlier planes that are here in the Great Gallery. This one is a Boeing Model 100. It's a biplane from the 20s. And a Stearman C-3B, also 1927. These are planes I look at every day, especially when I'm down at one of the simulators. The Curtiss Company Robin C-1 from 1928. And a Stinson Model O from 1933. This one is labeled as a reproduction because fortunately there are a lot of collectors who have gone and found the pieces and gotten the plane to look like it does today, like you could climb on board and fly in it now. There's simply so many planes here, it's easy to give short shrift. But I'd like to focus on a handful of them before I go to one of the others that I really want to get on film. This one is a MiG from Russia, of course, with its flat nose. Next to it is a Canadian plane, a Sabre Mark IV. The Royal Canadian Air Force and the earlier flag of Canada before the one that we are more familiar with today. This one stands out. It has that super long nose. It's a Vought XF-8U1 Crusader. From the 50s, it's dubbed Last of the Gunfighters. We have a collection also of aircraft from Vietnam down in the Great Gallery. This one has become quite a recognizable helicopter. Many museum guests come to see it. It's a Bell UH-1H Iroquois, but much more commonly known as the Huey. then the very big fighter jet parked right next to it. Is an F-4. Also with its own piece of nose art. It's officially known as the F-4 Phantom. And then probably the biggest star of this side of the street and the Great Gallery is the Lockheed Blackbird M21. It's one of the last of its kind still in one piece. There were later versions of the Blackbird that are fairly more well known, but our plane in particular worked with a drone. It was early edition stealth technology, but at that time, this plane that could go up to Mach 3 sat up very high up in the air and would send the drone down for reconnaissance flights. It is huge. It was supersonic and was faster than the Concorde because it was really used for spying. The drone sat up on top. There's just not any surviving examples with that still around. There are other Blackbirds, but they're a different model. One of the stars of our museum, certainly because of who it's associated with, is the Lockheed Model 10E Electra. Our individual plane started its service in 1935, was used by Northwest Airlines, and saw time in the war. This beautiful plane with its chrome-looking finish is stunning to look at just on its own. But part of the reason why we have it is that a plane just like this is what Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan flew in 1937 when they vanished into history and legend. Last year, I was able to get on board this plane and sit in the cockpit. While it probably couldn't fly now today, it really does have a very striking appearance. Amelia Earhart's Electra crashed before they took the final leg, and here on display we have a piece of the Electra plane that eventually went missing with her and Mr. Noonan on board. This plane arrived at the museum and was a feature in an Amelia Earhart exhibit years ago that I came just as a museum guest to come and look at. But it's always struck me because of its look and its high, shiny appearance. It's always been one of my favorite planes long before I actually came to work here. But everything about this Electra is associated with Amelia Earhart. And it was definitely a project. Everything about the mystery behind Amelia's disappearance is here in various signs. But we also have a statue right here next to the plane